For Christmas, my parents gave my 9-year-old a brand new iPhone. She lit up with pure joy. Then she turned it on, frowned, and said, "Mama, who's that?" I looked at the home screen and froze. I didn't say a word. But 2 hours later, my sister's husband was screaming. My dad was begging me not to press charges, and my mom was completely silent. I hadn't been back in that house for almost 2 years. Not since the last blowout fight where I told my mom and dad flat out that if they ever crossed another line with me or my daughter, we were done. But time does that thing where it stretches memories, blurs edges. I started to second-guess myself. Think maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe they were just old-fashioned. Maybe it really wasn't that deep. And then Christmas came. They invited us early in December. Said they wanted to do something special this year. Said they'd been working on themselves. And stupidly, I believed them. I'd been staying low since the divorce. My ex was a whole different disaster. So when my daughter Harper lit up at the thought of spending Christmas with her grandparents, I caved. We showed up with gifts. I baked cookies from scratch. We wore matching pajamas. The whole Hallmark vibe actually started off nice. My mom hugged Harper longer than usual. My dad even helped set the table. No tension, no jabs. They handed out gifts and smiled like nothing bad had ever happened between us. And then it was time for the big one. They saved it for last. This shiny little box with a red ribbon and Harper's name in glittery cursive. She tore it open and squealed before the wrapping even hit the floor. A brand new iPhone, the latest model. It was too much, honestly, but she was glowing, hugging them, bouncing on her toes. I didn't say anything, just figured maybe they were finally trying to make an effort. She turned it on. The Apple logo lit up, and then the home screen appeared. She stopped smiling. She tilted her head and looked up at me. "Mama, who's that?" I walked over confused, thinking maybe they'd taken a selfie or something, but then I saw it. It was a photo of Michael, her father. Harper had never seen his face. I never showed her a picture, never told her he was dead. He died in a car crash 3 weeks before she was born. And for years, I kept saying he was working overseas, just until she was old enough to understand, just until I could tell her in a way that wouldn't break her. I felt the blood leave my face. I didn't say a word. My mom was suddenly real quiet. My dad started fiddling with the corner of the tablecloth, and my sister's husband, Dan, started laughing awkwardly like this was all some hilarious prank. Harper looked at me again, waiting for an answer. I told her we needed to go right then. No excuses. I packed up our stuff, said a quiet goodbye, and drove off before they could ask questions. But in my head, something snapped. I knew exactly what they were doing. That picture wasn't a mistake. It was a message, a punishment for keeping Harper from them, for daring to set boundaries, for leaving the family and starting my own business without them. They used my daughter to send it. 2 hours later, my phone was blowing up. Dan was screaming over speakerphone, accusing me of being dramatic. My dad was begging me not to make it a bigger deal than it was, and my mom didn't say a word. I didn't respond. I just opened my laptop, logged into my accounts, and started the first steps of cutting them out completely. They were about to learn that the daughter they tried to break was the one holding everything together. By morning, I was already sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open and Harper still asleep in her room. I didn't cry. I didn't pace around the house or call a friend to vent. I just started clicking. First, I revoked access to the family credit card, the one my parents used for unexpected expenses. Funny how their definition of unexpected always turned into luxury face creams, restaurant bills, and upgrades to their living room furniture. I'd been letting it slide for over a year. Not because I was okay with it, but because I thought maybe they'd grow up eventually, that some part of them could learn how to be decent grandparents. Not anymore. I closed the account entirely. No warning, no conversation, just a few clicks, and it was gone. Then I moved on to the shared savings. I'd kept that account alive for sentimental reasons, believe it or not. It was originally set up when I got married, back when I still thought we were one big family. After Michael's death, I never closed it. It just sat there connected to a few things they still used, but I'd had enough. I transferred every penny into 2 new private accounts, one in my name and one in Harper's. Around 10 a.m., my dad called 3 times. I ignored him. Then he texted something about being at the pharmacy, how the card was acting weird, and could I check it when I had a moment? I didn't reply. The silence from my mom's side was louder than any of his calls. Not a word, not a text, nothing, which meant she knew what she did. She knew exactly what she'd done with that phone. She knew that photo would open a door I'd locked for nearly a decade, and she wanted it opened. She wanted Harper to look at me with confusion, to ask, "Mama, who's that?" with a brand new phone in her hands in front of everyone. On Christmas morning, they wanted the moment to break me, but it didn't. It clarified everything. They didn't respect boundaries. They never did. And now they didn't even respect Harper's innocence. They saw her as a way to punish me, to pull a thread in the tight weave of the life I'd built without them. So I kept going. Next, I called my accountant, told him to remove my parents from the business advisor notifications. They were never official partners, just names I let hover in the background so they could feel involved. Once or twice a year, they'd get updates about performance. I used to think it made them proud. Now I see it for what it was, leverage they thought they had. Gone. No more quarterly updates. No more calls from my dad asking why our social media following dipped 1 month or why I hired someone new. I told my accountant to prepare the paperwork for a clean split. They were never listed on the board, but emotionally, they still believed they had a seat at the table. Not anymore that I made Harper pancakes and gently told her some truths. Not everything. Not the crash. Not the funeral. Just that her dad wasn't coming back. That he'd been gone for a while. That I hadn't told her because I wanted to protect her for as long as I could. She nodded and didn't say much. She was quieter than usual that day, and I didn't push her. That night, Dan showed up. He stood outside like a statue, arms crossed, debating whether to knock or walk away. I stepped out and shut the door behind me. He said I was overreacting. Said my dad was a mess and my mom hadn't spoken all day, that I'd hurt the whole family over a stupid wallpaper photo that I asked him one question. Did he know? He hesitated, then admitted he'd seen the phone a few days before Christmas. Said my mom had shown him the home screen and laughed. She called it poetic. That word again, poetic, like they'd written a tragedy for my daughter to stumble into. Dan started getting loud. Said I was being heartless, that I'd cut off their financial safety net, and walked away like it meant nothing. He was right about one thing. I did walk away, because they didn't just cross a line. They dug it up and drew a new one in blood. After he left, I sat on the couch and stared at the last unopened gift under the tree. It was mine, from them. Still wrapped in gold paper, my name written in cursive on a tag that said, "We're still proud of you." I hadn't touched it, but now I wondered what they'd put inside. And knowing them, Christmas was never the only thing they planned. I waited until Harper was asleep. The gift had been sitting under the tree since Christmas morning. Gold foil paper. Perfect cursive. I hadn't even looked at it properly. After what they'd done with Harper's phone, I didn't trust anything from them. But the way they left it, like it was meant to be the grand finale of their twisted little holiday performance, made me want to know what they were really trying to say. I sat on the living room floor, the house dead quiet. No lights. I opened it slowly, like I was defusing a bomb. Inside was a frame. At first, I didn't recognize the photo. It looked professionally printed, clean, glossy. Then it hit me. It was me, 7 months pregnant, standing beside Michael, smiling. It had been taken at my baby shower. One of the last photos we ever took together. I never shared it. Never posted it. I never gave my parents a copy. They must have found it on Michael's old hard drive. I'd left it at their place once, back when I still trusted them to keep anything safe. Taped to the back of the frame was a folded piece of paper. My mother's handwriting. For Harper, for when she's ready to know who her father really was. Maybe by then you'll be ready to tell the truth, too. That was it. Short. Heavy. The way only my mom could make a sentence feel. This wasn't just another jab. It wasn't passive aggression or guilt tripping. This was a declaration of war. They planned this. The phone wallpaper wasn't a mistake. It was step one. Then the framed photo. Then the note. Each one a carefully timed crack in the reality I'd built to protect Harper. They wanted her to see Michael's face before I was ready. They wanted her asking questions I wasn't prepared to answer. They wanted to rip that moment out of my hands and make it theirs. I left the frame exactly as it was. Didn't tear the note. Didn't throw it away. I slid everything into a paper bag, drove across town the next morning, and left it at their front door. No knock. No text. Nothing. By the time I got home, I'd opened a shared folder with my lawyer. This was no longer personal. This was about control, legacy, and ownership. When I started my business 5 years ago, I was still crawling out of grief. My parents loaned me some money. Not much, just enough to get a tiny online shop running. I paid it back 3 years ago, but the way they tell it, you'd think they bankrolled my entire life. They introduced me at parties as our daughter who runs the family business. I always bit my tongue. Let them have it. I thought it was harmless. Now I see it clearly. They weren't supporting me. They were claiming me. So I removed them, called the bank and revoked every shared access. Sent my accountant updated documents and instructions to terminate any remaining advisory roles or financial ties. Clean cut. Then I went further. I changed the company bio, removed every line about family roots or love, rewrote the origin story to what it really was. Built by a single mother with nothing but grief, grit, and a daughter to fight for. That same afternoon, my uncle, my mom's brother, called. I hadn't spoken to him in over a year. He said he'd heard things got tense after Christmas. Said maybe things had gone too far. Said I should think carefully before burning every bridge. That I asked him if he knew what they'd done. He dodged it, muttered something about family tension, then said, "They're still your parents, Julia." That line again, like it excuses everything. Like it erases what they did to a 9-year-old girl who just wanted to play with her new phone and instead met a ghost she didn't know she had. They used Harper to punish me. 3 days after Christmas, the bank's fraud department emailed me. Someone had tried to access my company account from an unrecognized device. Multiple failed logins, then a password reset attempt. It was traced directly to my parents' house. I saved the proof and sent it to my lawyer. The next morning, a certified letter arrived. 4 pages. Not an apology, an invoice. A list of everything they'd ever given me, complete with dates and dollar values. At the end, they demanded 15% equity in my company. I filed it with the bank alert. Harper was fine. Back at school. Focused on reading 1 book a week. She asked once more about the phone, then let it go. Then my cousin Claire called. Grandma had found out, enough to confront my mom. The result? Apologize publicly or be cut out of the estate. My parents panicked. 2 days later, my mom showed up at my door holding a food container like nothing was wrong. I asked her one question. Was the photo on Harper's phone her idea? She said, "You can't keep her in the dark forever." I closed the door. That night, Claire called again. My parents were talking about contacting Michael's family. That's when I stopped sleeping. The next morning, I sent a cease and desist. Clean, legal, final. They were forbidden from associating themselves with me, my business, or my daughter in any way. The company was mine. Period. One thing remained. A small, old bank account from the earliest days of the business. My dad still had viewing access, and I was done letting even that stay open. I left the account open for years, letting my dad log in and watch the numbers grow. Maybe part of me hoped he'd feel proud. That afternoon, I finally closed it and moved the money, just under $28,000, into Harper's education fund. I forwarded the confirmation email to my dad. No message. Just, "This account has been closed by the primary owner." 15 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Dad. Again. Then Dan. Then my mom. No voicemails. Just long silences before the calls dropped. They still thought I'd break. I didn't. The fallout came fast. Claire showed up with a lemon loaf and a note from my mom. I didn't take it. Claire said my mom wanted me to stop, that she thought I was going too far. I asked one thing. Did they tell her what they did to Harper? Claire nodded. They said they didn't think it would matter. That Harper should know anyway. Claire didn't defend them. She just said she was sorry and left. That night, I sent a simple statement to my clients and partners. A new chapter. All informal affiliations dissolved. No names. No drama. Just clarity. This was mine. Then I got a message that stopped me. Michael's sister. She'd heard noise about Harper and wanted to meet someday, if I was open to it. It wasn't anger. Just curiosity. I didn't know what to say yet. Moments later, another message came from an unknown number. "You'll regret this when she finds out what you're hiding." I knew what they meant. I pulled out the old documents, the accident reports, the insurance papers, Michael's will. Years ago, my lawyer had mentioned something strange about how fast the life insurance transfer happened. One signature had been my father's. Back then, I didn't question it. Now, everything made sense. They hadn't just helped. They'd inserted themselves into everything. Money, estate, control. That night, I told Harper everything. About her dad. The photo. The note. The truth. She didn't cry. She hugged me and asked if we could finally take the trip I'd always promised her. Yellowstone. We booked it that night. The next morning, I called Michael's sister and told her the truth. She didn't push. She just said she'd wait. And then she said, "You protected her." No one gets to tell you that was wrong. 3 days later, my parents sent one last email. No threats. No guilt. Just acceptance. And for the first time, I believed them. Not because they changed, but because they'd lost control. There was no dramatic ending. Just the quiet snap of a thread that had been fraying for years. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about boundaries. And Harper will grow up knowing the truth. Not the version my parents tried to write, but the one that matters. Her mother didn't run. She protected her.